Hello and greetings, fellow enjoyers of Overwatch content. Today we're gonna do something special. As some of you might know who have read my community posts, I'm currently unable to make the videos that you're used to, and as such, I decided to do something that's a bit more low effort, for lack of a better term, easier to make, something that doesn't take as much energy and I can do in between doctor visits, essentially. Anyway, this is something that I've done for Apex before, when I first hit max level in that game, back when that was at like level 100 as opposed to 500 now. This is essentially just an unscripted story time video of me talking about my experiences this time in Overwatch and how I hit Grandmaster for the first time. The game has been out for so long that that's actually been like, what, 6 years ago soon? So a lot of people may have not actually played the game back then, or some other people might be struggling to hit Grandmaster for the first time now, so maybe, perhaps this is gonna be useful for some of you, or if you're just, you know, doing your daily grinds in Destiny or World of Warcraft, or you're chopping trees in New World, whatever the case may be, feel free to minimize this video and just listen in. You're not gonna miss out on much of anything. If I can be asked, I might be able to throw in some gameplay of whatever heroes I'm talking about, but that's really about it. So feel free to minimize this and just enjoy the story. But first, a quick message from our sponsor. Surfshark is my go-to service for all of my virtual private network needs, and it comes with a bunch of great benefits. For me, living in Germany, a lot of great shows, and especially anime, are just straight up not available due to licensing issues, but with Surfshark VPN, I can change my IP and full streaming services into believing that I live somewhere other than Germany, so that I can get my anime fix. But of course, there's more that Surfshark can do for you. You can take advantage of regional pricing, get access to games that have been released in the West, and reap the security benefits that come with websites not knowing your IP. And if security is your concern, you can take advantage of additional services like Surfshark Alert, which monitors your personal data and notifies you as soon as it detects a breach, so that you can take action before it is too late. If all that does catch your interest, check out the link in the description below to save 83% on your subscription and get 3 extra months for free simply by using my promo code Terios. A big, huge, massive shout out to Surfshark for continuing to support my channel. And now, onto the story. So, Season 1 of Overwatch. Back then, we didn't actually have Grandmaster ranks. It was like I think it was a scale of 1 to 100, but the highest rank was somewhere in the 80s, I believe. It was one of those things where technically you could reach 5,000 SR in the current system, but nobody really does, right? Kind of the same thing. And the first time I played rank, I was somewhere in the 60s, and then when the rank system was changed as we know today, the first rank I ever got was Platinum. I placed Platinum in Season 2 playing DPS mostly, and it was actually a very frustrating experience because I come from an FPS background where I really just, you know, I played the CODs, the battlefields, and what I was playing actively at the time was a game called Dirty Bomb, in case any of you still remember me making videos about that game. The reason I even started playing Overwatch in the first place was because I'm not only an FPS fan, I also played World of Warcraft religiously and was kind of a Blizzard fanboy, so seeing that, you know, the company that I really liked at the time and the genre that I had a lot of fun with at the time coming together, that was like the perfect storm. And that's even like besides the fact that I really enjoy just like hero movies and like the whole like idea of heroes. So, you know, the Marvel movies, My Hero Academia as far as anime is concerned, One Punch Man as well, and Invincible recently too. There's like a lot of this stuff that has to do with heroes. I just absolutely like I just consumed this like a sponge essentially. So when Overwatch came out, I was a bit confused because I really enjoyed FPS games, and I was like, this doesn't really play like an FPS. So first I played a lot of Soldier 76. And as far as shooter mechanics are concerned, it was really unsatisfying. Like, going from Dirty Bomb, which had really, really fun gunplay and really fun movement, to playing Soldier 76, which was the only character that could even sprint, which was really odd to me. The gun just didn't feel anywhere near satisfying. So at some point I decided, okay, so maybe this isn't an FPS as I know it, let's try some of the other characters. And then as far as FPS was concerned, McCree was really fun, but I wasn't really that good at it. So I started playing more of the MOBA characters. Like I played Junkrat, I played Genji a lot. So just kind of trying my way through the game, but I just couldn't get out of Platinum to save my life. And I was grinding the game as far, you know, as much time as I had at the time. But eventually, I got really frustrated because I just could not get out of Platinum playing DPS. And back then, obviously, we didn't have role queue, and we didn't have hero locks, so no 2-2-2, we could just play whatever we wanted. And that was one of those guys that just really wanted to play DPS. But eventually, I was so frustrated with myself as well as my teammates that I just started playing Lucio. And I was the definition of just a heal bot ground Lucio. My thinking was that if I just sit there and I provide healing, nobody can blame me. I can't blame myself because I did my job, I did my healing, and if I lose, it's not my fault. Funnily enough, that actually worked really well as far as not tilting me was concerned, whereas playing DPS was extremely tilting to me. So eventually I figured, now that I'm playing support anyway, I might as well try some other support heroes, and I figured that the support heroes that were more DPS-alike, I really enjoyed. So Mercy, incredibly boring to me, didn't enjoy that. Lucio, I hadn't figured out how to play, I was just like a heal bot and some little speed boosting. But then Zenyatta. I'm talking 150 HP Zenyatta. That character was really fun, but he was really hard to play. Granted, people weren't as good at target prioritization, so very often you could just like get away with stuff that you really had no right to get away with as Zenyatta, but it still didn't really click with me, essentially. Eventually they buffed him so he can't get one-shot body shot by Widowmaker again anymore, so he was buffed to 200 HP. And then Ana eventually came out, and Ana was like, her gun, like mechanically, felt so much more satisfying to use than like most of the other FPS characters in the game that I immediately picked her up. And that same season, Season 2, I ended up in Diamond on the back of playing mostly Lucio, just kind of like brain AFKing, with a little bit of DPS, and then starting to throw in that Zenyatta, and I believe Ana was already out by Season 2, I'm not entirely sure about the timeline of events there, but as soon as Ana came out, I was really just like all about that. So there we go, Season 2, start in Platinum, end up in Diamond. Not too bad, but obviously not the like, you know, sky rising of SR that you know of like many other streamers who just are like insane gamers. So then in Season 3, I continued to play Ana, and eventually people woke up to the fact that that hero was actually kind of broken. Fun fact, and a lot of people have different versions of that story, but when Ana first came out, her audio cue for healing teammates, like the sound you hear when you get healed by Ana, it was very, very low. And because it was so low, even if you pumped ungodly amounts of healing into your teammates, they felt like you were not doing anything. And people would unironically flame you to get off Ana and play Mercy because they felt like Mercy was doing more healing, even when on paper that didn't really make any sense. The thing that made people realize how broken Ana was that not only were people getting better at the game in general, but also Nano Boost was just absolutely busted. Damage mitigation, damage increase, and speed boost made Reinhardt just like insane, absolutely insane. It's like every time you see a Nano Reinhardt, it's like GG, wipe it, we just go again, right? Of course, we had the Nano Blade as well, we had the Nano Beyblade. All these were metas that I haven't really felt much in Season 3. It was mostly just pump healing to the Reinhardt, nano the Reinhardt, and just let him kill the entire team. And that same season, I was actually doing a lot with a Genji player because both of us had a hard time playing in solo queue because we wanted to play really aggressively, and that was what I really loved about launch Ana, was that you did a ton of damage, a ton of healing, you had amazing utility with anti-heal, which is like, you know, decision making, do I want to use it for myself to stay alive or use it aggressively to push the enemies, and sleep dart to really disrupt the enemy team. So there was a lot of decision making that I felt was doing me more favors than my FPS experience. So up until I was picking up Ana, I really was just trying to out-FPS the enemies. I was trying to out-aim them, out-damage them in any way I could. When I figured this didn't really work out in Overwatch for me, maybe because my FPS skills are not good enough, I started to just hugely rely on game sense. So one thing that I really excelled at Ana in Season 3 was making the right decisions very, very quickly. So I always knew when I had to use my my Bionate offensively or defensively, where these days you really just kind of always want to use it offensively, and if you don't do it, you always feel like kind of doing it wrong, because you don't want to be in a position where you cannot anti the enemies. But back then, since everyone made more mistakes, I feel, and the meta wasn't really that rigid, you had a lot of choice with what you could do with Ana as far as like DPSing or healing or, you know, using your stuns is concerned. And with this whole like game sense thing developing in my brain, I started getting a lot more progress on my not only skill rating, but also just my skill as a player in general. So eventually I started doing with this Genji main because Nano Blade was really, really strong, and it really just helped us because we knew of each other that we were very aggressive, and if you push forward with a nano blade, it often made your team push with you as well, where up until that point it was really hard to convince your teammates to play aggressively and push with you as well, whereas these days really any GM player always wants to play aggressively, I guess. And if you don't do it again, it kind of feels like you're doing it wrong. So, Season 3, if I recall correctly, I ended up somewhere in 3,800, and it was a rapid climb. The games were getting a lot harder, but I was also getting better much faster, relying more on game sense than on my aim. And then when Season 4 came around, well, the dive incident happened, and let me just say this, okay? Like, I know we all, now in hindsight, really love dive, because by the end of that meta, I'm talking the end of that meta, not when it started, we all, like, we realized that this is a good meta, it was not busted anymore, and it was kind of fun to play because it was so mobile and so fast and so aggressive. A lot of people ignore the fact that at the start of dive, it was horrendous. People hated it, and people hated it specifically because of D.Va. Essentially, what the dive meta boiled down to when it first became prevalent was just D.Va going in, right-clicking all the damage and also all the healing and utility from Ana to then delete somebody with all the flankers. So you would have your Winston hold down mouse one, you would have your Tracer and your Genji just go in, and D.Va would just hold down right-click, and then something would die, and after you would snowball further. Frankly speaking, the start of dive wasn't really very fun to me, and the fact that I kept climbing kind of exacerbated that. And it sounds weird, but in Season 4, I hit Grandmaster for the first time, playing a mix of Ana, primarily, Lucio, and Zenyatta, all of which worked reasonably well in dive. It's just Ana was still busted at the time, I believe, so even if you play into dive, there was a good chance you could still win. But once I hit Grandmaster, the game got really unfun really fast, simply because it was one of those things where, you know, these days, if you play competitive, you feel like, oh, if my tanks don't go double barrier, we lose. Or even if it's not double barrier, if you just don't have any shields, the game feels so much harder than if you do have one, that it often feels like, why am I even playing, right? Like, why are we making this so difficult for ourselves? And dive was kind of the same in the sense that I always felt like if my team was worse at dive than the enemy team, I would lose. And there's absolutely nothing I could do about it. Like, it literally didn't matter how good my positioning, how good my aim, and how good my decision making was. If the enemy team played a better dive than us, then we lost. And that was... You would say that, you know, it's a skill versus skill thing, then it's fair, right? But for me as an individual, it didn't feel fair because I was playing the support. And let me just say, support was like such an unthankful role to play back in the day, because it's like everyone always wanted you to do everything, but nobody would go out of the way to peel, because peeling was like a foreign concept to most people. I guess it still is in many ranks these days. But essentially, because there was no immortality field, there was no Brig bash, right? There was no Brig passive healing. Brig really just kind of deleted dive where it stood, but because there was no anti-dive at the time, your fate was sealed the moment you queued up for DPS. And that just really sucked because it wasn't fun to me, like playing my favorite heroes anymore. And the game was supposed to be fun. So essentially, I started playing less and less going on from Season 4 onwards. And I just kind of played every season to get 4K. Because back then, reaching 4K at the end of the season gave you enough points to buy a golden gun. So I just kind of went like, alright, here's my placement games. I play somewhere around 37, 3800. I go get GM, and I kind of stop playing and just decay my rank. In a sense, as I'm talking about this, it really feels like not much has changed, right? It always feels like there's a meta where it starts off, everyone's kind of like, oh, that's cool, you know? It's the new thing that we gotta learn how to play, and then it goes on for too long, we all get bored. But really the most frustrating thing about dive at the start was just the inevitability of it. I wasn't asking for a hero like Brig to like give me a get out jail free card. Like if you play Zen Brig these days, it's like you're borderline immortal as Zenyatta, right? It's like there are very few things that are really dangerous to you shy of a really well coordinated team. And that also isn't really fun. I skipped the whole meta where Zenyatta could have like 350 HP to get with all the armor and stuff, just because the game wasn't really fun. I like the challenge, but I don't like the inevitability of, oh, these guys come at me and then I just kind of fall over because there's nothing I can do about it. And without Brig, there really was nothing stopping dive from doing that. Again, by the end, when they started like nerfing the dive heroes, the dive meta was actually pretty good. Like, I played some scrims, and I say scrims very loosely. It was like on my Discord with the community, we made some like teams that were pretty low ranked on average, but we all wanted to play coordinated and we didn't want to play ranked. So we made this like little league in our Discord, and I think it was like average of platinum rank, and I played DPS in that. So I actually loved dive by the end of it because it felt really cool to coordinate these moves together with the rest of your team. But again, it was a very frustrating meta for a lot of support players that weren't Lucio mains. And when I played Lucio, I always felt like I wasn't doing much. Again, that's because I'm not very good at Lucio, but it's just like, yeah. So I speed boost, and then I boop them into my team, and I just kind of hope my Winston holds left click and my D.Va holds right click. So I get it that dive, as far as coordination is concerned, is more fun than, like, you know, pulled pork or slambulance or double barrier we have right now, or goats. I mean, I enjoyed goats on ladder more than I enjoyed dive, simply because it made the whole team play together, and it wasn't this like weird, hey, my Doomfist is setting up a rollout there, my Tracer is flanking on a different map essentially, and my tanks are just kind of like strewn about trying to either go for the objective or just don't respawn because the frustrated game deleted. So what I liked about goats was just the fact that everyone played together, and it just felt cool to play a team game as a team game rather than just being like, oh yeah, we flanked them from all directions and then lose. Would I want to play goats for another 9 months? No, absolutely not. But in that same vein, I wouldn't want to play dive for another 9 months either. So I guess at the end of the day, I really would just love to have a meta that is fluid. Fluid, for lack of a better term, I guess. Just like, I would love to have something else like every 3 or 4 months. I feel that would be the perfect scenario for me personally, just so I don't get bored of it. If I had to choose one meta and just play that for most of my games, I'll probably pick Brawl. Simply Rein Zarya, Zenyatta, Ana. And then DPS, I don't really care that much. I actually like having the combination of one projectile, one hit scan hero. So Brawl really is my favorite composition. As someone who plays mostly low mobility characters, I didn't enjoy dive as much as most people, though I do see why other people would enjoy that. And yeah, the whole secret to getting GM for the first time was actually not treating this game like an FPS and just treating it more like a game sense, more like a MOBA where game sense and execution at the right time is more important than pinpoint accuracy, I suppose. I never played MOBA, so I don't actually know how accurate that is. But yeah, I was relying less on aim and more on game sense, and it didn't hurt me to play Ana when she was incredibly busted. So I guess the simple solution will be playing busted heroes. So if you want to get GM today, play Baptiste, play Sigma, Orisa, play Brigitte is still pretty good, I heard. It sucks to hear that, but at the end of the day, Overwatch is just one of those games where playing meta just makes the game a lot easier for yourself. So if you want to have a shiny badge, playing what's good is usually the way to go. It is worth mentioning that I had a bit of a discourse with some people at one point who did not want to believe me when I said that I could get GM. I told them I could get GM on Mercy without even trying, and they were like, no, you don't understand, Mercy's actually really difficult to play. And then I played Mercy from placements onwards, and I lost almost no games, because all I did was pocket my DPS. And I got GrandMaster. So yeah, that's kind of why I don't play Mercy. It's just really boring to me, and I feel like I'm not really doing much, as opposed to fending for my life on Zenyatta. Truly feeling alive when my life is in danger of a diving Doomfist at all times. But yeah, this is it for my video. I hope you enjoyed just kind of listening to me rambling, because that's unfortunately the best thing I can do in my current condition. I'm hoping to get all my medical issues sorted out. At present, I have no idea what's wrong with me. I'm waiting for my results. Just came back from the hospital today, so we'll see how that goes. Thank you everybody so much for your well wishes as well. Don't think I didn't read them, I definitely did. And yeah, I very much appreciate that. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, even though it was very random and very rambly, drop me that like, subscribe if you want to see more, and, well, hope to see you guys next time. Till then.